The rising sun painted the hills of Riverton, Wyoming with hues of amber and gold. But for Olivia Turner, this dawn promised nothing but darkness. Her trembling fingers clutched the simple cotton dress her stepfather had forced her to wear, the fabric as white and lifeless as her hopes for the future. In less than an hour, she would be bound forever to Edgar Holloway, a man whose cruelty was matched only by his wealth and influence in the territory. The year was 1878, and at 22, Olivia had learned that a woman's choices were as limited as the Wyoming horizon was vast. After her mother's death 6 months prior, her stepfather wasted no time in arranging this marriage, settling his considerable gambling debts by essentially selling her to the highest bidder. "You should be grateful," her stepfather had sneered the previous evening, his breath heavy with whiskey. "Not many men would take a headstrong woman like you. Holloway's offering to clear all my debts. You'll live in the biggest house in the territory." What he didn't mention was Holloway's reputation, how his previous wife had died under mysterious circumstances, how his ranch hands bore the marks of his temper, or how his cold, calculating eyes followed Olivia whenever they crossed paths in town. A soft knock at the door startled her from her thoughts. "Miss Turner." "It's time," said Martha, the kindly widow who had helped raise her after her father's death years ago. Martha's weathered face was etched with concern as she helped Olivia with the final touches of her wedding attire. "Child, if there was anything I could do to stop this." Her voice trailed off, both women knowing there was no escape. "I know, Martha," Olivia whispered, fighting back tears. "Some things just can't be changed." But even as the words left her lips, she thought of Irwin, the young cowboy whose gentle smile had been her only comfort these past months. Adam had arrived in Riverton last spring, taking work at the neighboring Patterson ranch. Their meetings had been brief but meaningful, a shared laugh at the general store, a conversation by the creek where she gathered wildflowers, his offer to help when her horse threw a shoe miles from town. In those fleeting moments, something had bloomed between them, something neither had dared name. 2 weeks ago, when she tearfully told him of her impending marriage, his blue eyes had darkened with an emotion she couldn't identify. "This isn't right, Olivia," he'd said simply. Then he'd ridden away, and she hadn't seen him since. The church bell tolled, its somber sound echoing through the small town. Olivia took a deep breath, steeling herself for what was to come. What choice did she have? Running was impossible. Holloway's men would find her before she crossed the county line. Fighting meant her stepfather would suffer, perhaps violently, for the debt he couldn't pay. Martha squeezed her hand. "Come, child, the wagon's waiting." The short journey to Riverton's white wooden church passed in a blur. Though it was barely 6 in the morning, a small crowd had gathered, some out of respect for Holloway's position, others out of morbid curiosity. Holloway himself stood at the altar, his tall frame rigid in an expensive black suit, his silver-streaked dark hair slicked back. At 45, he was more than twice Olivia's age, with a face that might have been handsome if not for the coldness of his eyes. Her stepfather, disheveled and already smelling of drink despite the early hour, roughly took her arm to lead her down the aisle. "Smile," he hissed. "You look like you're headed to a hanging." Perhaps she was, Olivia thought bitterly. A different kind of noose, but a death sentence all the same. The ceremony began, the preacher's words washing over her like murky water. She stood there, numb, as if watching herself from a great distance. When Holloway took her hand, his grip was possessive, fingers digging into her flesh just enough to remind her of his strength. If anyone can show just cause why this couple cannot lawfully be joined together in matrimony, let them speak now or forever hold their peace. The traditional words hung in the still morning air. Olivia closed her eyes, a single tear escaping despite her resolve to show no weakness. Then came the sound of church doors slamming open. "I object." The voice was clear, confident, and achingly familiar. Olivia whirled around, her heart in her throat. Irwin stood at the entrance, his tall frame silhouetted against the morning light. Gone was the easygoing cowboy she knew, replaced by a man whose determination radiated from every inch of his being. His dark blonde hair was windblown, his clothes dusty from hard riding, but his blue eyes were clear and fixed on her. "This marriage is a travesty," Adam continued, striding down the aisle as murmurs rippled through the small congregation. "Miss Turner is being forced into this union against her will." Holloway's face darkened with rage. "How dare you interrupt my wedding, Cowboy? This is none of your concern." "I'm making it my concern," Adam replied, his voice steady despite the tension filling the church. He stopped just short of the altar, his gaze finding Olivia's. "Miss Turner deserves a choice." Olivia's stepfather stepped forward, his face flushed with anger and embarrassment. "Now see here, Irwin, this is a private family matter, a family matter." Adam's laugh held no humor. "Is that what you call selling your stepdaughter to clear your gambling debts?" Gasps echoed through the church. Scandal was the lifeblood of small-town gossip, and this was the biggest Riverton had seen in years. "That's a damned lie." Her stepfather sputtered, though his shifting eyes told a different story. Holloway's hand moved toward the inside of his jacket, where Olivia knew he kept a small revolver. "You've said your piece, boy. Now leave before I have you removed, Mr. Holloway." Sheriff Davis's voice cut through the tension. The lawman had been sitting quietly in the back pew, a requirement for any event involving Riverton's wealthiest resident. Now he stood, his hand resting meaningfully on his holster. "Let's not make this situation any worse." In that moment of distraction, Adam moved forward, extending his hand to Olivia. "Miss Turner," he said softly, for her ears alone, "I can't force you to choose me, but I'm offering you a choice." Time seemed to stand still as Olivia looked from Adam's outstretched hand to Holloway's thunderous expression. She thought of the life awaiting her as Holloway's wife, the wealth and security, yes, but also the isolation, the fear, the slow death of her spirit. Then she looked at Adam with his honest eyes and calloused hands. He offered no promises, no grand estate, nothing but himself and the freedom to choose. Her decision made itself. Olivia placed her hand in Adam's. "I choose freedom," she said, loud enough for everyone to hear. What happened next was chaos. Holloway lunged forward, but Sheriff Davis intercepted him. Her stepfather shouted obscenities. The preacher called for calm. And through it all, Adam led her quickly down the aisle and out of the church, into the bright morning sunlight where two horses waited. "Can you ride in that dress?" he asked, already helping her mount. "I can ride in anything," she replied, gathering the white fabric around her legs as she settled into the saddle. Adam swung onto his own horse just as Holloway burst from the church, his men right behind him. "You'll regret this," he roared. "Both of you." But they were already riding hard, leaving Riverton and its small-minded judgments behind, at least for now. Olivia had no illusion that this was the end of their troubles. Holloway was not a man to accept defeat gracefully, but for the first time in months, hope bloomed in her chest. They rode for nearly an hour before Adam led them off the main trail to a secluded creek where they could rest the horses. As Olivia slid from her saddle, the reality of what she'd done hit her full force. She defied not just her stepfather, but one of the most powerful men in the territory. She had nothing but the wedding dress on her back and whatever future she could build with her own two hands. And yet, as she watched Adam gently water the horses, she felt no regret. "Thank you," she said simply when he approached. "What you did back there, I don't know how to repay you." Adam shook his head, a faint smile touching his lips. "There's nothing to repay, Miss Turner. I couldn't stand by and watch you sacrifice yourself." "Olivia," she corrected him, "after what we just did, I think we're well past formalities." That earned a real smile, lighting his tanned face. "Olivia," he agreed, "we should keep moving. Holloway won't give up easily." "Where are we going?" The question carried more weight than its simple words suggested. Where could they go? What future could they possibly have with Holloway's vengeance hanging over them? "For now, north," Adam replied. "I have friends in a settlement near the Montana border who will give us shelter while we figure things out." He hesitated. "I want to be honest with you, Olivia. I don't have much to offer. I've saved some money from my work at Patterson's, but it won't last long." "I don't need riches," she told him. "I just need—" She trailed off, suddenly unsure how to express what she needed. Freedom, safety, or something more, something that had been growing between them in those brief encounters over the past months. Adam seemed to understand her unspoken thoughts. We'll figure it out together, he promised. One day at a time. They continued riding through the day, stopping only when necessary to rest the horses. Adam shared his provisions: dried beef, hardtack, and water from his canteen. It wasn't much, but Olivia ate gratefully, realizing this was her first taste of true freedom in years. As dusk approached, Adam led them to a small, hidden canyon where a natural spring provided fresh water. "We'll camp here tonight," he said. "It's sheltered enough that we won't be easily spotted, especially if we keep the fire small." While Adam tended to the horses, Olivia gathered what firewood she could find. Her wedding dress, once pristine white, was now dusty and torn at the hem from a day's hard riding. She laughed softly at the sight of it. "Something amusing?" Adam asked, returning to their makeshift camp. "Just thinking about how horrified Holloway would be to see his bride now," she replied. "This dress cost more than most families in Riverton see in a month." Adam's expression grew serious. "Are you having second thoughts?" "Not one," she assured him. "But I am wondering what happens next. Holloway isn't a man who forgives easily." Adam nodded, building a small fire with practiced efficiency. "No, he's not, but he's also not the law, despite what he may think." He looked up at her, the firelight casting shadows across his face. "I've been thinking about this for the past 2 weeks, Olivia, ever since you told me about the wedding. I have a friend who runs cattle up in Montana territory. He's offered me work before. It would be a fresh start, far from Holloway's reach." "Montana," she echoed, testing the word, a place she'd never seen, farther north than she'd ever traveled. "Is it beautiful there?" "The most beautiful country you've ever seen," Adam said, his voice warming with enthusiasm. "Valleys that stretch forever, mountains that touch the sky, and grass so rich the cattle grow fat just looking at it." His passion was infectious, and Olivia found herself smiling despite the uncertainty of their situation. "It sounds wonderful." "It can be," he agreed, then added more soberly, "but winters are harsh and the work never ends. It wouldn't be an easy life, Olivia." "I've never wanted an easy life," she replied truthfully, "just one that's mine to choose." They fell into companionable silence as the stars appeared one by one above them. Olivia wrapped Adam's spare blanket around her shoulders against the growing chill, thinking about the twists and turns that had brought her to this moment. "Adam," she said after a while, "why did you come for me today? The truth." He poked at the fire, considering her question. "When you told me about the wedding, I knew it wasn't right. I rode out that same day to Cheyenne, looking for legal options to stop it. But everyone I talked to said the same thing: without proof of coercion that would stand up in court, there was nothing to be done." "So you decided to object at the wedding instead?" Olivia prompted when he paused. Adam nodded. "I couldn't let it happen without at least trying to stop it." "But I want you to know something, Olivia. I didn't come for you expecting anything in return. If you want to go your own way once we're safely away from Riverton, I'll understand." The sincerity in his voice touched her deeply. In a world where men like her stepfather and Holloway saw women as property to be traded, Adam's respect for her choices was remarkable. "And if I don't want to go my own way?" she asked quietly. In the flickering firelight, she saw something vulnerable flash in his eyes. "Then we'll find our way together." Morning came with a chill that penetrated Olivia's borrowed blanket. She woke to find Adam already up, brewing coffee in a small tin pot over freshly kindled flames. "You slept soundly," he observed, handing her a cup of the strong, black brew. "First good sleep I've had in months," she admitted, gratefully accepting the coffee. Its warmth chased away the last vestiges of night's cold. No nightmares about becoming Mrs. Holloway. Adam smiled at that, but his expression quickly grew serious. "We should reach my friend's homestead by nightfall if we make good time. It's not much, just a way station on our journey north, but we'll be safe there for a few days." They ate a simple breakfast of the last of Adam's provisions before breaking camp. As Olivia prepared to mount her horse, she glanced down at her wedding dress with distaste. "I wish I had something else to wear," she sighed. "This isn't exactly practical." Adam rummaged in his saddlebag and pulled out a bundle. "I brought these," he said, almost shyly. "They belonged to my sister before she married and moved east. They might be a bit large, but—" Olivia accepted the bundle, finding a simple blue cotton dress, slightly worn but clean, and basic undergarments. Your sister's clothes, you thought of everything. Not everything, he admitted. But I figured you wouldn't want to travel in that wedding dress forever. I'll wait with the horses down by the creek while you change. Alone, Olivia stripped off the hated white dress with its delicate lace and tiny pearl buttons, all Holloway's choices, all designed to display his wealth rather than consider her comfort. In contrast, the blue dress was plain but serviceable, with enough room to move freely. It hung a little loose on her frame, but a belt fashioned from a length of leather solved that problem. When she rejoined Adam, leading her horse, his appreciative glance warmed her more than the morning sun. Much better, she said, lifting her arms to show the practical sleeves. Thank you. It suits you, he replied simply, helping her mount. Blue always did match your eyes. It was a small comment, but it revealed he'd been noticing her long before this journey began. The thought brought a blush to her cheeks that had nothing to do with the strengthening sun. They rode steadily through the day, keeping to less traveled trails. Adam was clearly familiar with the country, navigating confidently through terrain that became increasingly rugged as they moved north. Occasionally, he would point out landmarks or share stories about the land, and Olivia found herself captivated not just by the information, but by the way his face lit up when he talked about the country he clearly loved. How long have you been working as a cowboy? She asked during a brief rest to water the horses at a small stream. Since I was 16, Adam replied. My father died in '71, and there wasn't enough money to keep our small ranch going. My mother moved back east with my sister, but I stayed. This is my home. And your friend in Montana. How do you know him, Jacob Freeman? We worked cattle drives together for years before he settled in Montana. Good man. Honest, he'll help us if he can. By late afternoon, storm clouds were gathering on the horizon, and Adam pushed them to maintain their pace despite the tired horses. We're close, he assured her. Just over that ridge. The homestead came into view as they crested the hill, a modest cabin with a sturdy barn and corral, smoke rising from the chimney despite the warm season. A man emerged from the barn as they approached, rifle in hand, until he recognized Adam. Irwin, didn't expect to see you again so soon, the man called, lowering his weapon. He was middle-aged with a salt and pepper beard and shrewd eyes that quickly assessed Olivia. And with company, no less. Jacob, Adam greeted him with a nod. Sorry to arrive unannounced. We're in a bit of trouble and could use a place to rest. Jacob's gaze traveled from Adam to Olivia and back again, taking in her hastily altered dress and their travel-worn appearance. Trouble seems to follow you like a shadow, my friend, he observed dryly. But you're welcome here, both of you. The first fat raindrops began to fall as they dismounted. Jacob efficiently helped them stable their horses before ushering them into the cabin, where a woman with kind eyes and work-roughened hands greeted them. This is my wife, Sarah, Jacob introduced them. Sarah, this is Adam Irwin and Olivia Turner, she supplied, accepting Sarah's warm handshake. Miss Turner was about to be forced into marriage with Edgar Holloway, Adam explained bluntly. I objected. Jacob whistled low. Holloway, the cattle baron from down Riverton way. You certainly don't start small when you pick fights, do you, Adam? It wasn't his fight to pick, Olivia interjected, feeling a sudden need to defend Adam. But he did it anyway, and I'll be forever grateful. Sarah squeezed her hand sympathetically. You poor dear. Well, you're safe here for now. Let me fetch you both some hot food, and then you can tell us the whole story. Over a hearty meal of venison stew and fresh bread, Adam and Olivia recounted the events that had brought them to the Freeman homestead. Jacob and Sarah listened without interruption, their expressions growing increasingly grave. Holloway won't let this go, Jacob said when they finished. He's got too much pride, and from what I've heard, he's not a man who forgives being publicly humiliated. We don't plan to stay in the territory, Adam replied. I thought we might head up to your cousin's spread in Montana if his offer of work still stands. Jacob nodded slowly. It does. Richard's always looking for good hands, and he's far enough north that Holloway's reach wouldn't extend there. He glanced at Olivia. But it's rough country, miss, especially for a woman alone. She won't be alone, Adam said quietly, his eyes meeting Olivia's across the table. Something unspoken passed between them, a promise neither was quite ready to name. Olivia felt her cheeks warm under his steady gaze. Sarah, perceptive as most frontier women needed to be, changed the subject. You both look exhausted. Adam, you can take the loft. Olivia will stay in our spare room. Grateful for the woman's kindness, Olivia accepted the offer of a bath, her first real wash since fleeing Riverton. In the privacy of the small room off the kitchen, she sank into the warm water and finally let the tears come, not tears of regret or fear, but of relief and overwhelming gratitude for her narrow escape. Later, dressed in a clean nightgown borrowed from Sarah, Olivia sat on the edge of the narrow bed and brushed out her long chestnut hair. A soft knock at the door made her start. Olivia. Adam's voice was low, mindful of their hosts who had retired for the night. May I speak with you for a moment? She opened the door to find him standing there, freshly washed and changed into clean clothes Jacob had lent him. For a moment, they simply looked at each other, the reality of their situation settling between them. I wanted to make sure you were all right, he said finally. Today has been quite a day. The understatement made her smile despite her weariness. Quite a day indeed, but yes, I'm all right. Better than I've been in months, actually, he nodded, seeming relieved. Good, that's good. He hesitated, then continued. Jacob's been telling me more about his cousin's ranch in Montana. It sounds promising, but he ran a hand through his damp hair. Olivia, I need to be honest with you. If we go there, people will talk. Two unmarried people traveling together, living on the same property. People always talk, she replied, her voice steadier than she felt. I learned long ago not to base my decisions on avoiding gossip. Even so, I don't want to damage your reputation. His concern touched her deeply. My reputation was probably beyond salvaging the moment I ran from the church, she pointed out, but I appreciate your concern. Adam shifted his weight, clearly wrestling with something. There's another option, he said finally. We could marry. Not now, he added quickly, seeing her expression. Not until you're ready, if you ever are. But it would give you protection, legal protection from Holloway, and it would silence the gossips. Olivia's heart hammered in her chest. It wasn't a declaration of love, not exactly, but there was something in his eyes that spoke of more than mere practicality. Adam, she began carefully, are you proposing to me? Poorly, it seems, he admitted with a rueful smile. I'm not asking for an answer tonight, Olivia. I just wanted you to know that option exists. Whatever you decide, I'll respect your choice. Again, that respect for her agency so rare and so precious. Impulsively, she reached out and took his hand. Thank you, she said softly, for everything. For giving me choices when everyone else was taking them away. His fingers tightened around hers briefly. Get some rest, he murmured. We have a long journey ahead, whatever path we choose. After he left, Olivia lay awake in the unfamiliar bed, her mind racing with possibilities. Marriage to Adam would indeed provide protection from Holloway's claims, and the practical benefits were undeniable. But what of her heart? She'd known him only a few months, and while she felt drawn to him in ways she couldn't fully explain, was that enough to build a life upon? Sleep finally claimed her, but her dreams were a confusing tangle of white dresses, thundering hooves, and Adam's steady blue eyes promising something she couldn't quite grasp. The storm that had threatened the previous evening had passed by morning, leaving behind a freshly washed landscape and clear blue skies. Olivia woke to the smell of coffee and bacon, her body stiff from the previous day's long ride but her spirit lighter than it had been in months. In the kitchen, she found Sarah already busy at the stove while Jacob and Adam sat at the table, deep in conversation. They fell silent when she entered, and Adam rose to his feet, a gesture of respect that brought a small smile to her lips. Good morning, she greeted them, accepting the coffee Sarah offered with grateful thanks. We were just discussing the best route north, Jacob explained. There's word of trouble with some of the northern tribes along the main trail. Might be safer to take the western route, though it's longer. How much longer? Adam asked, frowning. 3, maybe 4 days. But it follows the river most of the way, so water won't be a problem for the horses. Adam nodded, considering this, And it's less traveled, less chance of running into anyone from Riverton. Much less, Jacob confirmed. Mostly just trappers and the occasional prospector this time of year. Olivia listened to their planning, understanding the unspoken concern. Every additional day on the trail was another day Holloway's men might find them, another day exposed to the elements and other dangers of the frontier. Yet the alternative, a more direct route with greater risk of detection, seemed even less appealing. The western route sounds wisest, she offered, drawing their attention. I'm not afraid of a few extra days of travel if it means safer passage. Adam studied her for a moment. It'll be rough going in some places. I'm stronger than I look, Mr. Irwin, she replied with a hint of teasing in her voice, deliberately using the formal address they'd abandoned yesterday. A slow smile spread across his face. Of that, Miss Turner, I have no doubt. Their playful exchange lightened the mood, but the serious business of preparation soon took precedence. Sarah insisted on packing them ample provisions: salted meat, beans, coffee, and freshly baked bread. Jacob provided Adam with a more detailed map of the territory they would be crossing, marking potential dangers and good camping spots. You'll need these too, Jacob said, bringing out a rifle and a revolver from a locked cabinet. The Winchester's an extra I keep for emergencies, and the Colt was my father's. Both are clean and shoot true. Adam inspected both weapons with practiced ease. This is generous, Jacob. I'll return them when we're settled. See that you do, the older man replied gruffly, though his expression was kind. And right when you reach Richard's place, so we know you arrived safely. By mid-morning, they were ready to depart. Olivia had changed into the sturdier clothes. Sarah had provided a split riding skirt, sturdy blouse, and durable boots that would serve her far better on the trail than her previous attire. As they prepared to mount up, Sarah pressed a small package into Olivia's hands. Some women's necessities, she explained quietly, and a bit of lavender oil. The trail is long and dirty, and sometimes a small comfort makes all the difference. Touched by the woman's thoughtfulness, Olivia impulsively hugged her. Thank you for everything. Be safe, Sarah replied, embracing her warmly. And remember, there's no shame in finding happiness where you can in this hard country. With final farewells exchanged, Adam and Olivia rode out, heading northwest toward the distant Montana territory. The morning sun warmed their backs as they left the homestead behind, the only sounds the steady rhythm of hoofbeats and the occasional call of birds overhead. Your friends are good people, Olivia observed after they'd been riding for some time. You're fortunate to have them. I am, Adam agreed. In this country, the right friendships can mean the difference between survival and disaster. He glanced at her. Jacob and Sarah have been through their share of hardships. They lost 2 children to fever before they came west. I think that's why Sarah took to you so quickly. She has a mother's heart. The revelation added new depth to Olivia's understanding of the couple's kindness. I'm sorry for their loss. They've made a good life despite it, Adam said. That's all any of us can do out here: face what comes and keep moving forward. His words held wisdom beyond his years, reminding Olivia that the hardships of frontier life forged a different kind of maturity than she'd known back east before her family moved to Wyoming. At 25, Adam had likely seen more struggle and triumph than many men twice his age in the more settled states. They rode steadily through the day, stopping occasionally to rest the horses and eat a simple lunch from their provisions. Adam was a patient teacher, showing Olivia how to watch for signs of water, how to read the landscape for potential shelter, and which plants might supplement their diet in a pinch. My father taught me to live off this land, he explained as they paused by a small creek where wild onions grew. Said a man who knows his country never truly goes hungry. And a woman? Olivia asked, her tone deliberately challenging. Adam looked up from the onions he was gathering, a smile tugging at his lips. A woman who knows her country is twice as formidable, I expect. My mother could track game better than most men I've known, and she never missed with a rifle. She sounds remarkable. She was, Adam agreed, a hint of sadness touching his expression. Still is, I imagine, though Boston society probably doesn't appreciate her tracking skills. Is that where your family settled? Boston, he nodded, pocketing the wild onions. My mother's family is from there originally. Old money, though most of it was gone by the time she came west with my father. When he died, she went back to what she knew. But you stayed, Olivia observed, helping him refill their canteens. I stayed, he confirmed simply. The unspoken reasons hung between them: his love for this wild country, his independence, his unwillingness to be confined by Eastern society's stricter boundaries. They made camp that evening in a sheltered hollow where a stand of cottonwoods provided both firewood and cover. Adam efficiently set about building a small fire, while Olivia arranged their bedrolls on opposite sides of the flames, close enough for safety, distant enough for propriety. I've been thinking about what you said last night, she said as they shared a simple meal of beans and the wild onions Adam had gathered. About marriage. He looked up sharply, his expression guarded. And I understand the practical reasons, she continued carefully. But marriage should be more than mere practicality, don't you think? Adam set down his tin plate, giving her his full attention. Yes, he said simply. It should be. Encouraged by his honest response, Olivia pressed on. If we were to consider such an arrangement, I would want to know that it was based on more than convenience or protection. What would you want it based on, Olivia? His voice was soft, his eyes reflecting the flickering flames between them. She took a deep breath. Respect, trust. Friendship at the very least, and perhaps in time something more. Something more, he echoed, his gaze never leaving hers. Like love, the directness of his question caught her off guard. Yes, she admitted, like love. Adam was silent for a long moment, his expression thoughtful. I respect you, Olivia. I've respected you since the day I watched you stand up to Holloway in the general store when he tried to belittle Mrs. Peterson over a minor misunderstanding. I trust you enough to stake my life on this journey with you, and friendship. A smile touched his lips. I'd like to think we've already begun building that, and the something more, she asked softly, her heart beating rapidly. That's harder to speak of, he admitted. Not because it isn't there, but because it's too new, too fragile to define. His eyes held hers across the fire. But I know that when I heard you were to marry Holloway, something in me rebelled at the very thought. Not just because he's a cruel man, but because the idea of you bound to anyone else felt. He searched for the right word. Wrong. His honesty left her breathless. It wasn't a declaration of undying love, but perhaps something more real, the acknowledgement of a connection neither of them fully understood yet, but both recognized as significant. I feel it too, she confessed. This connection between us, I don't know what to call it either. Then perhaps we don't need to name it yet, Adam suggested. Perhaps we just need to give it time to grow, to become whatever it's meant to be. Olivia nodded, unexpectedly moved by his patience. In a world where women were often rushed from their father's house to their husbands with little opportunity to know their own minds, Adam's willingness to give her time felt like the rarest of gifts. I believe I would like to marry you, Adam Irwin, she said finally. Not today and not tomorrow. But soon, when we've had a chance to know each other better beyond these extraordinary circumstances. Relief and something warmer flashed in his eyes. I can live with that, he said, his voice rougher than usual. And I promise you this, Olivia Turner, I will never force you into anything. The choice will always be yours. The weight of his promise settled around them, more binding than any legal document or ceremony could be. In the wilderness of Wyoming territory, with nothing but the stars as witnesses, they had formed a covenant of mutual respect that would form the foundation of whatever relationship grew between them. They retired to their separate bedrolls soon after, the long day's ride catching up with both of them. But as Olivia drifted toward sleep, she felt a sense of peace she hadn't experienced in years. Whatever dangers lay ahead, Holloway's pursuit, the hazards of the trail, the uncertainty of their future in Montana, she would face them with Adam at her side, as equals. Dawn brought with it a bank of low clouds that promised rain before the day was out. They broke camp efficiently, both aware that covering ground before the weather turned was their priority. Adam studied the sky with a practiced eye as they mounted up. Looks like we're in for a soaking, he observed. We should try to reach Clearwater Canyon by midday. There's a series of shallow caves along the eastern wall where we can take shelter if needed. Olivia nodded, pulling her borrowed coat closer around her shoulders against the morning chill. How far is it? About 15 miles, if we keep a good pace. They rode in companionable silence for much of the morning, the landscape gradually changing as they moved northwest. The open plains gave way to more rugged terrain, with stands of pine and fir becoming more common as they gained elevation. Despite the threatening skies, Olivia found herself enchanted by the wild beauty surrounding them. "It's magnificent country," she remarked during a brief stop to rest the horses. "So different from Riverton." "This is just the beginning," Adam told her, his enthusiasm evident. "Wait until you see Montana mountains that make these hills look like anthills. Valleys so green they hurt your eyes, and skies bigger than you can imagine." His passion for the land was infectious, and Olivia found herself increasingly eager to see this promised place. The Montana Territory had been established only 15 years earlier, still raw and untamed compared to much of Wyoming. It represented a true fresh start, far from Holloway's influence and the constraints of her former life. As Adam had predicted, the rain began shortly before noon, a gentle drizzle that quickly intensified into a steady downpour. They pushed on toward Clearwater Canyon, the horses' hooves splashing through rapidly forming puddles. "Not much further," Adam called over the drumming of rain. "Just beyond that ridge." But as they crested the hill, both riders drew their horses to an abrupt halt. In the valley below, a small camp had been established near the mouth of the canyon. 3 men huddled under a makeshift shelter, their horses tethered nearby. Adam's expression tightened as he surveyed the scene. "We should avoid them," he said quietly. "There's another route, though it'll add hours to our journey." "Do you recognize them?" Olivia asked, peering through the rain. "No, but in this country, strangers are a risk we don't need to take." She nodded her agreement, understanding the wisdom of caution. 3 men against their 2 represented poor odds if the encounter turned hostile. Adam led them back down the ridge and along a more circuitous path that skirted widely around the unknown camp. The detour took them through denser forest where the trees provided some shelter from the rain. But the going was slower, the trail less defined. By mid-afternoon, the storm had intensified further, with occasional rumbles of thunder echoing through the hills. When they reached a small clearing with an overhanging rock formation that offered reasonable shelter, Adam called a halt. "We'll wait it out here," he decided, helping Olivia dismount. Pushing on in this would only exhaust the horses and risk injury. They made a rudimentary camp, unable to light a fire due to the wet conditions but grateful for the relative dryness under the rock overhang. Adam tended to the horses while Olivia arranged their gear, spreading out what blankets they had to sit on. "At least we have dry food," she noted optimistically as they settled in to wait out the storm, sharing jerky and hardtack from their provisions. Adam smiled at her positive outlook. "You're adapting well to trail life." "I've always been adaptable," she replied. "It's how I survived after my father died and my mother remarried. My stepfather was difficult long before he decided to sell me to Holloway." "I'm sorry you had to endure that," Adam said quietly. "No one should be treated as property." The simple statement, so aligned with her own deeply held belief, reminded Olivia why she had been drawn to this man from the beginning. In a society where women had few legal rights and even fewer practical options, Adam's recognition of her humanity was remarkably rare. "Tell me about your plans," she prompted, wanting to move away from painful memories. "What would you do in Montana if all goes well?" Adam leaned back against the rock wall, considering. "Richard's ranch is a starting point, not the destination," he explained. "I've been saving for years to buy my own land. Montana has some of the best grazing country in the territories, and land is still affordable for a man willing to work the more remote areas." "You want your own ranch," Olivia surmised. He nodded. "Nothing extravagant. Just enough land to run a decent herd, build a solid home." His eyes met hers. "Raise a family someday, perhaps." The implication hung between them, neither quite ready to address it directly but both aware of its significance. Instead, Olivia asked, "How much more would you need to save?" "Another year or two of steady work would give me enough for a modest start," he replied. "It's slow going on a cowhand's wages, but I'm getting there." "What if you had a partner?" The question slipped out before she could reconsider it. Adam's eyebrows rose slightly. "A partner?" "I have some money," she explained, feeling suddenly self-conscious. "Not a fortune, but my father left me a small inheritance that my stepfather couldn't touch. It's in a bank in Cheyenne in my name only. I was planning to access it after I turned 23 next month when the trust conditions expire." "Olivia," Adam began, his expression serious, "I didn't rescue you from one marriage of convenience to trap you in another. Whatever money you have is yours." "I know that," she assured him. "But if we're discussing a future together, a real partnership, then it makes sense to combine our resources." She smiled slightly. "I have no interest in being a silent investor, mind you. I'd expect to have a say in how our ranch is run." The tension in Adam's face eased, replaced by something like admiration. "I wouldn't have it any other way," he said. "Though I should warn you, ranching is brutal work. Even with combined funds, we'd be starting small, doing most of the labor ourselves." "I'm not afraid of hard work," Olivia replied simply, and she wasn't, Adam realized. Despite her relatively genteel upbringing, Olivia Turner possessed a core of steel that had allowed her to survive years under her stepfather's thumb, and the courage to flee a forced marriage with nothing but the clothes on her back. Such a woman would not be daunted by the challenges of building a ranch from scratch. The rain continued unabated through the afternoon and into the evening, forcing them to spend the night under the rock overhang. They shared the blankets for warmth, maintaining a respectful distance but drawing comfort from each other's presence. As darkness fell, their conversation drifted to lighter topics: childhood memories, favorite books, small dreams and ambitions that revealed more of their characters to each other. In the intimacy of the shared shelter, with the steady rhythm of rain creating a private world around them, the connection between them deepened in ways neither had anticipated. "I used to imagine traveling west when I was a girl," Olivia confessed, her voice soft in the darkness. "My father had books about the territory's illustrated accounts of explorations and settlements. I would spend hours poring over the pictures, dreaming of mountains and prairies. And now you're living that dream, though perhaps not quite as you imagined," Adam observed. "No," she agreed with a small laugh. "Being rescued from a forced marriage by a handsome cowboy wasn't part of the childhood fantasy." "Handsome, is it?" There was a smile in his voice. Olivia was glad for the darkness that hid her blush. "Don't let it go to your head, Mr. Irwin." Their gentle teasing gradually gave way to silence, then sleep, each finding unexpected comfort in the other's presence, despite the hard ground and persistent damp. Morning brought clearing skies and renewed determination to make up for lost time. They set out early, Adam setting a brisk pace now that the main trail was again open to them. By mid-morning, they had successfully navigated through Clearwater Canyon and emerged onto a broad plateau that offered spectacular views of the country ahead. "We're making good progress," Adam noted as they paused to water the horses at a small stream. "Another 3 days should bring us to Richard's ranch, weather permitting." Olivia nodded, but her attention was caught by something in the distance. "Adam," she said quietly, pointing. "Riders." He followed her gaze, instantly alert. 4 horsemen were visible on a distant ridge, moving parallel to their own route. At this distance, details were impossible to make out, but the mere presence of other travelers in this remote area was cause for caution. "Could be anyone," Adam said, though his hand moved instinctively to rest on his rifle. "Trappers, prospectors, but we'll change course just to be safe." They altered their path to maintain maximum distance from the unknown riders, keeping to lower ground where the terrain offered more cover. For several hours, there was no further sign of the other party, and Olivia began to hope they'd successfully avoided detection. That hope was dashed late in the afternoon when Adam, glancing behind them, spotted dust on their trail. "Riders coming fast," he said tersely. "Find cover. Now." They urged their horses into a gallop, making for a dense stand of trees ahead. Once within the shelter of the forest, Adam quickly dismounted, helping Olivia down before leading both horses deeper among the trees. "Stay here," he instructed, tying the horses securely. "I'm going to see who's following us." "Be careful," she whispered, fear tightening her chest. Adam nodded grimly, checking his revolver before moving stealthily toward the edge of the forest. Olivia waited in tense silence, straining to hear over the pounding of her own heart. Minutes stretched like hours before Adam returned, his expression grave. "Holloway's men," he confirmed. "I recognized Ben Tyson leading them, Holloway's foreman." Cold dread washed through Olivia. "How did they find us? We were careful." "Someone must have seen us and reported back," Adam surmised. "Or they've been searching every possible route north." He quickly began gathering their gear. "We need to move. They're still checking the open ground, but it won't take them long to try the forest." They mounted up and pushed deeper into the woods, moving as quickly as the dense undergrowth allowed. Adam led them on a winding path that utilized every natural feature to conceal their passage: dried creek beds, rocky outcroppings, fallen trees, all while maintaining their northwesterly heading. As dusk approached, they emerged from the forest onto a rugged slope that offered a view of the surrounding country. Adam scanned the terrain carefully before pointing to a narrow ravine about half a mile ahead. "We'll make for that," he decided. "It runs north for several miles according to Jacob's map. With luck, we can lose them in the deeper canyons beyond." They rode hard for the ravine, acutely aware of their exposed position during the crossing. Just as they reached the shelter of its steep walls, a distant shout confirmed their worst fears: they'd been spotted. The ravine provided temporary protection, its twisting course and high sides preventing direct pursuit. But as darkness fell, Adam's expression grew increasingly concerned. "The ravine ends ahead," he told Olivia quietly. "Once we're out, it's open country for at least a mile before the next cover. Can we outrun them?" He shook his head. "Their horses are fresher. Our best chance is to find a defensible position and hope they pass us by in the dark." As the ravine widened and its walls diminished, Adam led them to a cluster of massive boulders that had fallen from the cliffs above. Between two of the largest rocks was a space just big enough to conceal their horses and provide some shelter. "We'll wait here," he whispered, helping Olivia dismount. "No fire, no light. If we're lucky, they'll miss us in the darkness." They settled into their hiding place, Adam positioning himself where he could watch the mouth of the ravine. Olivia sat close beside him, drawing comfort from his solid presence despite the danger surrounding them. "Adam," she said softly after a long silence, "if they find us—" "They won't," he interrupted firmly. "But if they do," she persisted, "I want you to know that I don't regret any of it. Leaving with you was the best decision I've ever made." In the faint moonlight filtering between the boulders, she saw his expression soften. "Olivia," he began, then stopped as the distant sound of hoofbeats reached them. They froze, hardly daring to breathe as the riders approached. From their hiding place, they could see 4 men emerge from the ravine, pause, and confer briefly before continuing across the open ground to the north. "They think we kept going," Adam whispered once the riders were well past. "But they'll realize their mistake eventually and double back. We need to move as soon as it's safe." They waited another hour to ensure the search party was truly gone before cautiously emerging from their shelter. Rather than following the pursuers' path, Adam led them east along the base of the cliff face, using its shadow to conceal their movement. "There's a fork in the trail about 5 miles ahead," he explained as they rode. "If we can reach it before they return, we can take the eastern branch while they continue searching the western route." The night was clear but moonless, making travel dangerous even for Adam's experienced eye. They moved slowly, every sense alert for signs of pursuit or natural hazards. Olivia, exhausted from the day's tension and exertion, fought to stay alert in the saddle. "We're almost there," Adam encouraged her as he noticed her flagging. "Just a little further." The fork, when they reached it, was barely discernible in the darkness, just a subtle divergence in the trail that most travelers might miss entirely. Adam guided them onto the eastern path without hesitation, setting a pace that balanced speed with safety as they put distance between themselves and their pursuers. They rode through the night, stopping only when absolutely necessary to rest the horses. As dawn broke, Adam finally called a halt in a secluded vale where a spring provided fresh water and dense trees offered cover. "We should be safe for a few hours," he said, helping Olivia from her saddle. She nearly collapsed against him, her legs numb from the long night's ride. "You need rest." "So do you," she countered, noting the exhaustion etched on his face. "I'll keep watch while you sleep," he insisted. "Then we'll trade." Too tired to argue, Olivia settled onto the bedroll Adam arranged for her, falling into an immediate and profound sleep. When she woke, the sun was high overhead and Adam sat nearby, his back against a tree, rifle across his knees. "You were supposed to wake me," she chided, sitting up stiffly. "You needed the rest more," he replied simply. "Besides, I've gone longer without sleep during roundups." Despite his casual tone, Olivia could see the fatigue in his eyes. "Your turn now," she said firmly, rising to take the rifle from him. "I'll watch." After a token protest, Adam relented, stretching out on the bedroll she'd vacated. Within minutes, his breathing deepened as sleep claimed him. Olivia settled herself where she could observe both him and their surroundings, the rifle a comfortable weight in her hands. She'd learned to shoot years ago, under her father's patient tutelage. It was one of the few skills her stepfather had never discovered. She possessed a small secret that had given her a sense of capability during years when so much else was beyond her control. As Adam slept, Olivia kept vigilant watch over their temporary sanctuary, her mind working through the implications of their situation. Holloway's pursuit confirmed what she'd already suspected. He viewed her escape as a personal affront rather than a mere inconvenience. Such a man would not easily abandon his quest for retribution. Even if they reached Montana safely, she realized, they might never be truly free of his shadow unless they went even further, perhaps to Oregon or Washington territory, places so distant that even Holloway's reach couldn't extend there. The thought should have been daunting, but instead, Olivia found it strangely liberating. With Adam beside her, the prospect of building a new life in an even more remote frontier felt like an adventure rather than an ordeal. When Adam woke several hours later, refreshed enough to continue their journey, she shared these thoughts with him. "You might be right about Holloway," he acknowledged as they prepared to depart. "A man like that carries grudges to the grave. But Montana is vast, and Richard's ranch is well off the usual trails. We'll have time to consider our next move once we're safely there." They resumed their journey with renewed caution, Adam choosing routes that sacrificed speed for secrecy. The path took them higher into the mountains, where the air grew cooler and the forests denser. Game was plentiful, allowing Adam to successfully hunt a young deer that evening, providing them with fresh meat and the luxury of a hot meal for the first time in days. As they sat beside their small fire, savoring the venison Adam had skillfully prepared, Olivia felt a surprising contentment despite their precarious situation. Here, miles from civilization, with only this man for company and the stars overhead, she experienced a freedom that had nothing to do with laws or social conventions and everything to do with living authentically, moment by moment. "What are you thinking?" Adam asked, noticing her thoughtful expression. "That I never felt as free in a fine house in Riverton as I do right now in the middle of nowhere," she replied honestly. Adam's smile was understanding. "Some people need walls and fences to feel secure, others need open sky. And which are you?" "Open sky without question," he said. "Though I'll admit a roof is nice when it rains." She laughed at that, the sound bright in the quiet evening. "A fair compromise, a house with large windows perhaps and a wide porch for watching sunsets. Is that what you'd want for our home?" The question was casual, but his eyes held hers with an intensity that suggested its importance. "Yes," Olivia replied softly. "A place that shelters without confining, where the outside is always welcome in." Adam nodded, satisfaction evident in his expression. "We can build that," he said simply, as if making a vow. The next 2 days passed without incident, their path taking them steadily northwest through increasingly beautiful country. Adam pointed out landmarks that marked their progress, a distinctive twin-peaked mountain, a lake shaped like a crescent moon, a massive lone pine that had somehow survived a lightning strike years earlier. By the afternoon of the third day, a palpable excitement had entered Adam's demeanor. "We're getting close," he told Olivia as they crested a ridge that offered a spectacular view of the valley beyond. "Richard's ranch is just on the other side of that next range." The knowledge that safety was near gave them both renewed energy, and they pushed on until dusk began to settle over the land. They made camp in a sheltered grove near a clear stream, both too keyed up by their progress to sleep immediately. "Tomorrow," Adam said as they sat together after their evening meal, "we'll reach the ranch by midday. Richard's a good man, gruff but fair. His wife, Caroline, is from Boston originally, like my mother. You'll like her." "Will they understand our situation?" Olivia asked. "About Holloway, I mean." Adam nodded confidently. "Richard despises men who abuse their power, and Caroline—" He paused, smiling slightly. "Caroline once shot a man who tried to force himself on one of their kitchen maids. She's not someone who tolerates injustice, especially toward women." Relieved by this description of their soon-to-be hosts, Olivia relaxed against the tree trunk beside Adam. The night was mild, with a gentle breeze that carried the scent of pine and distant wildflowers. Above them, the sky blazed with stars more numerous than she'd ever seen in Riverton. "It's beautiful here," she murmured, tilting her head back to take in the celestial display. "So vast." "Montana skies," Adam said, his voice warm with affection for this land. "Nothing else like them." They sat in companionable silence, shoulders touching, until Adam tentatively reached for her hand. Olivia laced her fingers through his without hesitation, the simple contact expressing what neither was quite ready to put into words. "Olivia," he said after a moment, his voice low. "When we reach Richard's tomorrow, we'll need to explain who you are, why you're with me." She understood the unspoken question. "We can tell them the truth," she replied. "That I escaped a forced marriage, that you helped me, and that we're—" She hesitated, searching for the right term. "Courting?" Adam suggested. The old-fashioned word made her smile. "Yes, courting, with the intention of marriage once we're properly settled." He squeezed her hand gently. "Are you certain? About the marriage part, I mean. You've had little time to consider it fully." "I've had our entire journey to consider it," she corrected him. "And yes, I'm certain, not because it's practical or safe, but because—" She turned to face him in the firelight. "Because when I imagine my future, you're in it. Because when I think of building a home, it's with you. Because when I picture happiness, it has your face." The simple honesty of her declaration struck Adam deeply. Without words, he raised his free hand to gently touch her cheek, his eyes asking a question his lips didn't form. Olivia's answer was to lean forward, closing the distance between them. Their first kiss was tentative, sweet with promise and the newness of discovered feeling. When they parted, Adam's expression held a wonder that matched the warmth spreading through Olivia's chest. "I've wanted to do that since the moment I saw you standing in that white dress, looking like you'd rather face a firing squad than marry Holloway," he admitted with a small laugh. "Even then," she asked, surprised. "Even then," he confirmed, though it seemed impossible at the time. "And now?" His smile was tender, his voice sure. "Now nothing seems impossible." They reached Richard Freeman's ranch shortly after noon the following day, riding up to a sprawling log home surrounded by well-maintained outbuildings and corrals. The main house was larger than Olivia had expected, with a wide porch that wrapped around three sides, exactly the kind of open, welcoming structure she had described to Adam. A tall man with a salt and pepper beard emerged from the barn as they approached, shading his eyes against the midday sun. Recognition dawned on his weathered face, quickly followed by a broad smile. "Adam Irwin, as I live and breathe," he called out, striding toward them. "Jacob said you might be heading our way, but I didn't expect you so soon." His gaze shifted to Olivia with undisguised curiosity. "And with company, no less." Adam dismounted and helped Olivia down before greeting Richard with a firm handshake. "It's good to see you, Richard. This is Miss Olivia Turner." The pride in his voice as he introduced her was unmistakable. "We've had quite a journey getting here." "I can see that," Richard replied, his shrewd eyes taking in their travel-worn appearance. "Well, any friend of Adam's is welcome at Freeman Ranch. Come inside and meet Caroline. She'll be delighted to have another woman to talk to. It's mostly cowhands and timbermen in these parts. The interior of the house was surprisingly refined, blending frontier practicality with touches of Eastern elegance that spoke of Caroline Freeman's influence. The woman herself proved to be as remarkable as Adam had suggested, a striking figure in her early 40s with intelligent eyes, and a direct manner that Olivia immediately appreciated. "So you've escaped a forced marriage," Caroline summarized after hearing their abbreviated story over coffee in her comfortable kitchen. "Good for you, though I'm sorry you had to flee with nothing but the clothes on your back." "I gained far more than I lost," Olivia replied, her gaze meeting Adam's briefly. Caroline's perceptive eyes missed nothing. "I see," she said with a knowing smile. "Well, you're both welcome to stay as long as needed. Richard was just saying last week how short-handed we are with the spring calving underway, so your timing is perfect, Adam. And you, my dear," she continued, turning to Olivia, "can stay here in the main house. We have plenty of room and I could use the company. My daughters are both back east at school, and the house feels empty without them." The offer of separate accommodations was both proper and practical, allowing them time to court formally despite the unusual circumstances that had brought them together. Adam would bunk with the other ranch hands, while Olivia would enjoy the protection and companionship of the main house, an arrangement that maintained propriety, while giving them both space to ensure their feelings weren't merely a product of their shared adventure. The next few weeks settled into a comfortable rhythm. Adam worked from dawn to dusk with Richard and the other hands, quickly proving his value during the busy calving season. Olivia, meanwhile, found her own place within the household, assisting Caroline with domestic management and learning the complexities of running a successful ranch. Most evenings, Adam would join them for dinner in the main house, after which he and Olivia would often sit on the porch, talking long into the night. Under the Montana stars, their connection deepened, moving beyond the intensity of their escape to something more solid and enduring. "I received a letter from Jacob today," Adam told her one evening about a month after their arrival, forwarded through Richard's contacts in the nearest town. Olivia looked up from the quilt she was mending, one of many skills Caroline had been patiently teaching her. "What news?" "Holloway's men came to their homestead, asking questions." He hurried to reassure her as alarm crossed her face. "Jacob told them nothing, of course, said he hadn't seen me in months." "Do you think they believed him?" Adam shrugged. "Hard to say. Jacob writes that they've been combing the territory for weeks, but the trail's gone cold. He thinks Holloway may be giving up the search." Though the news was cautiously optimistic, Olivia couldn't quite bring herself to believe they were truly free of Holloway's shadow. The man's pride and vindictiveness ran too deep for him to simply accept defeat. Her concern must have shown on her face, for Adam reached over to take her hand. "Even if he's still searching, we're safe here, Olivia. Richard's property is miles from the main routes, and few outside the territory even know of its existence." "I know," she acknowledged. "It's just difficult to imagine Holloway simply moving on." "Perhaps he hasn't," Adam admitted. "But his reach isn't unlimited, and he has business interests to attend to in Wyoming. He can't spend forever chasing two people who, in the grand scheme of things, are of little consequence to his empire." The logical assessment brought her some comfort, though a lingering wariness remained. Still, she refused to let fear of Holloway taint the new life she was building here. Each day brought fresh discoveries about ranching, about Montana, about Adam, and about herself. She learned that she had a natural affinity for horses, spending increasing time helping with the ranch's small but growing breeding program. She discovered that she enjoyed the rhythm of frontier life, with its direct connection to the land and seasons. And she found that her feelings for Adam grew stronger with familiarity, rather than diminishing a promising foundation for the future they were planning together. 2 months after their arrival, on a perfect summer evening, Adam asked her to ride with him to a particular spot he wanted to show her. They followed a winding trail up into the foothills east of the ranch until they reached a small plateau overlooking the entire valley. "What do you think?" he asked as they dismounted, gesturing toward the spectacular view. Below them lay the ranch buildings, nestled among cottonwoods and pines with open pastureland stretching toward distant mountains. "It's breathtaking," Olivia replied honestly. Adam took her hand, leading her to a specific vantage point. "Look there," he said, pointing to a spot about half a mile from the main ranch buildings, where a small creek curved through a grove of trees. "Richard has offered us that land 160 acres, including water rights to the creek." Olivia stared at him, hardly daring to believe what she was hearing. "For our ranch, for our home," he corrected gently. "The ranch will grow from there, but it starts with a home." He squeezed her hand. "Our home, Olivia, if you still want that, if I still want that." She echoed, emotion making her voice unsteady. "Adam, it's everything I want." His smile was radiant as he reached into his pocket and withdrew a small object. "Then perhaps you'll want this as well." In his palm lay a ring, a simple band of gold with a small sapphire that caught the evening light. "It was my grandmother's," he explained. "My mother sent it when I wrote to tell her about you." "You wrote to your mother about me?" Olivia asked, surprised and touched. "Of course," he replied. "I told her I'd found the woman I want to spend my life with. A woman of remarkable courage and strength, who chose freedom over security and never looked back." He held up the ring. "This is her blessing, and my promise." Tears filled Olivia's eyes as Adam dropped to one knee before her. "Olivia Turner," he said formally, though his voice was thick with emotion, "will you do me the great honor of becoming my wife?" "Yes," she whispered, then louder. "Yes, Adam, yes." As he slipped the ring onto her finger, Olivia felt the final pieces of her new life falling into place. From the ashes of what would have been a life of quiet desperation with Holloway, something beautiful had emerged, a love based on mutual respect and shared dreams. They were married 2 weeks later in a simple ceremony on the Freeman Ranch, with Richard and Caroline standing as witnesses. Olivia wore a dress of pale blue silk that Caroline had ordered specially from Helena, while Adam cut a handsome figure in a new suit purchased for the occasion. The vows they exchanged were traditional, but the meaning behind them was anything but conventional. When Adam promised to love, honor, and cherish, Olivia knew he also silently promised to respect her independence and value her partnership. When she vowed the same in return, she added her own silent promise to stand beside him as an equal, to face whatever challenges came their way with the same courage that had brought them to this moment. Construction on their house began the very next day, with Adam and several of the ranch hands laying the foundation on the plot Richard had given them. Olivia was involved in every decision, from the layout of the rooms to the placement of the windows, large and numerous, as she had dreamed, with a wide porch that wrapped around the front and side to catch both morning and evening light. By late autumn, the house was complete enough to move in, though some finishing work remained for the winter months. It was smaller than the Freeman home but solidly built, with 3 bedrooms for the family we'll have someday. Adam had said, and the promised large windows that brought the outside in, just as Olivia had envisioned. They moved in on a crisp November day, carrying their few possessions across the half-mile from the main ranch. Caroline had gifted them with essential household items, while Richard contributed a small herd of 20 cattle and 2 quality breeding horses, the nucleus of what would become the Irwin Ranch. That first night in their own home, with a fire crackling in the stone fireplace Adam had built with his own hands, Olivia felt a contentment she had never imagined possible. From near prisoner in her stepfather's house to forced bride at Holloway's altar to this mistress of her own home, married to a man who saw her as a partner rather than a possession. "Happy?" Adam asked, joining her on the new sofa Caroline had insisted on ordering from Helena as a wedding gift. "More than I can express," she replied, leaning into his embrace. Outside, the first snow of the season began to fall, dusting their new land with white. Inside, the fire cast golden light across the simple furniture and polished wooden floors of the home they had created together. "I was thinking," Adam said after a comfortable silence, "come spring we should plant an apple orchard on the south slope. It would take a few years to bear fruit, but we have time," Olivia finished for him. all the time in the world. And in that moment, as her husband's arms tightened around her and the snow fell gently beyond their windows, Olivia knew that everything they had risked, everything they had endured to reach this point had been unquestionably worth it. Years later, the Irwin Ranch would become one of the most prosperous in the region, known for its quality horses and innovative cattle breeding practices. Adam and Olivia would welcome 3 children, 2 sons, and a daughter, who would grow up knowing the value of freedom, courage, and love based on mutual respect. And on warm summer evenings, long after their children were grown with families of their own, Adam and Olivia could still be seen sitting together on their wide porch, watching the Montana sunset, and remembering that fateful dawn when a forced marriage was transformed into an extraordinary love story, all because a cowboy dared to object, and a brave woman dared to take his hand.